Good old steak and salad. This is a striploin steak. And this is obviously spring mix. I'm going to cook this with the rendered guanciale fat that has been sitting in the fridge for, I would say, 84 years or 3 months. And to make the salad dressing, I'll use Hellmann's real mayonnaise, white vinegar, Dijon mustard, a little bit of paprika, and this should be a pretty quick meal. So now making the salad dressing, I'll start with a good amount of mayonnaise. And because I'm using Hellmann's, which is pre-made mayonnaise, which doesn't have a lot of taste, I'm adding vinegar and Dijon mustard just to give it some edge. About half a tablespoon of mustard, I would say. And some smoked paprika for obviously some smokiness. This thing won't come out. And I'll start with a pinch of salt because that doesn't harm anyone. Okay, this looks pretty good. It's a little thinner than just the mayonnaise, and that's exactly what I want. I'm gonna taste it. Whoo! Could use a little bit more vinegar. Oh, it's got a kick. Okay, so the dressing is done. Now let's move on to this guy. Okay, so this guy's wrapped very tightly with some paper towel. And I'm trying to get the surface as dry as possible because any excess moisture would prevent, browning from happening. And I want the steak to have a pretty pronounced crust. So getting rid of the paper towel. And I like to season my protein in a plate so that I can mop up the salt and pepper later. The steak is about 330 grams, so roughly 12 ounce, 11 ounce. And that needs a lot of salt. And a lot of this stuff is gonna fall off. So what I'll end up with is not gonna be an over-salted steak. So what I like to do is seasoning the two sides and then just kind of mop up the remaining salt for the fat cap side. And I'm not adding pepper at this stage. It's just a preference thing. I like to add pepper at the end after I slice the steak. I feel like I get more pepper flavor out of it. And I don't want to let this steak sit for too long because once you add the salt, it's going to start pulling out the moisture. So I'm gonna turn around undramatically and turn the heat up to medium high and get this stuff in the pan. Obviously, normally you could just use any neutral oil to cook steak, but you know, this is guanciale fat, which is flavored pork fat, and I think it's gonna add good flavor. And this is about, I'd say, 1.5 tablespoons of oil. I want this to melt and evenly coat the bottom of the pan. And that's gonna take a while. So let me babble a little bit about cooking steaks. Now, obviously there are a lot of different ways to cook a steak. You have the sous vide, which is the fancy vacuum bag method that guarantees whatever temperature you set it to. And there's the reverse sear, which is basically baking the steak first and getting the internal temperature to, you know, whatever you prefer. So for medium rare, it's like 125. And then pulling it out and finishing cooking in the pan. You're essentially giving it the crust at the very end. That's why it's called a reverse sear. Or you can do the pan sear to oven, which is the normal sear. Or you could just cook it in the pan, which is what I'm gonna do now, because I can't be bothered, obviously, to get a sous vide machine. That stuff costs anywhere between $70 to $200. And the reverse sear or the pan sear to oven methods both take longer, and I'm not having it today. I just want a piece of steak. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chuck it in the pan. Oh look, the fat has all melted. Good. I'm gonna chuck it in the pan, and I'm going to flip it every 30 to 45 seconds, I would say. By flipping it often, I'm actually ensuring an even cook. And as you can see, water is already coming out, so that's not good. Should have seasoned it super last minute. Now I have to pat it dry. I'm just gonna put this on here. I'm gonna press on it at the very end. Now the pan is starting to smoke. That's nice. I might have to turn on the exhaust fan and do a post commentary again, so bear with me here. All right, so post commentary me has taken over again. As I gently press on the steak to dry it for the second time, because obviously I was too dumb to season this super last minute. And now you'll see me trying to flip the steak and not tip the paper towel over to the ground and almost miserably failing. So that's awesome. Also, there's no food hygiene consideration around here. I don't do that. I don't care. But anyways, now the steak goes in the pan. I'm gently pressing it down to trying to reach try to maximize the contact between the steak and the pan. And that's why I said I was trying to have enough fat to cover the bottom of the pan, because you know the end goal is to have an even cook on both sides and on basically, you know, as much area as possible. And now I'm flipping after about 40-45 seconds, and this looks like a disgusting piece of boiled meat. And this is the normal look after the first flip if you're using this method. It's going to take time, especially in the nonstick pan, but you're going to trust me here, or feel free not to, because I'm not a cook. But you'll see how it gets progressively more browned. And this method was, I'm not sure if it was invented by Heston Blumenthal, but I first read about it from him. He's a British chef who has multiple Michelin stars, but that doesn't matter. What matters is he kind of takes a scientific
approach to cooking, which I find to be very interesting. And he did this experiment where he had like a heat map or whatever, and he tried different methods. So turns out this is the best method. And now I'm turning the heat up a bit because I felt like, yeah, I just needed more power. And I'm just making sure that the fat is getting to um, the contact area. And still at this stage, there's only, minor browning and it's mostly gray. But again, trust the process. Joel Embiid. Yeah. Um, and it's starting to smoke quite considerably for, an indoors apartment setting. As I try to flip it again. Also, the whole flipping thing was kind of nerve-wracking because I was afraid that I was gonna just yeet the steak out of the pan and make a mess, but that didn't happen. Now another flip, I'm not keeping track, but as you can see here, the steak is starting to pick up some color, and from here on, each flip will generate sort of a more visible difference. So again, this is kind of weird, but I just kept gently pressing on the steak. I just couldn't let go of it for some reason. Now another flip, another nervous attempt. This is quite nice. And at this point, the smoke was a bit too much. So I turn it back down to medium high. And here, I'm just going to keep this footage in because this is 100% real, unedited cooking. Very, very low production, to be honest. But I was just trying to scoop all or most of the fat from the quart container because I felt like I needed more fat. So I added more fat. And now it's smoking even more. Also, by adding the fat, I was able to lower the temperature of the pan a little bit. Now this flip, this is pretty beautiful. This is where we're nearing the end here. Because for a steak that's 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick, it doesn't need much cooking time. And now I'm lowering the heat to medium because I don't want the browning to be too aggressive. Also, I don't want to trigger the smoke alarm. That's always a hassle to shut down. I would have to grab a chair and like climb up and risk falling or whatever. Now this is the penultimate flip, I think. Now this is not perfectly browned, but I'm pretty happy with this. I'd rather have a steak that looks like this. It's mostly brown, but like not perfectly browned. But at the same time, the inside is properly cooked, as we'll see. I'd rather have a steak like this than have a steak that's aggressively almost blackened on the outside and overcooked on the inside. So this is the type of trade-off you have to make. Now this is a final sear on the fat cap edge. I just wanted to get some color on it, render some of the fat out, get it a little crispy, and just stare at the beautiful picture that's in front of me. And now this is done. I'm pulling it out, very important, to rest, and voila.
This guy's resting. I'm just gonna toss the salad real quick. Looks like a good amount. And I like a good amount of dressing on my salad. And I like the dressing to be evenly distributed. That's why I'm tossing instead of just drizzling the dressing on top. That's when one guy, a couple of guys out. Okay, it's done. That's on standby. And now, moment of truth, I'm gonna slice the steak and see how bad I cooked it. All right, here we go. I mean, this looks pretty good to me. So now I'm gonna plate it up. There's very loud construction going outside, so bear with me. I'm gonna try to make myself audible. And let's just ignore the fact that I'm day drinking on a Tuesday, I believe. Yeah. Now this browning here is really nice, in my opinion. You know, I cooked the steak in a non-stick pan, and normally it's harder to get a crust, or it's just harder to caramelize in a non-stick. But by flipping it constantly and managing the temperature of the pan, I ended up with a pretty good steak. I think the guanciale fat definitely makes the steak taste extra meaty. So if you can get hold of any sort of animal fat like duck fat or beef tallow, I think that's actually the best option because you're cooking beef. If you can get your hand on some animal fat, use that. It's fantastic. This is going to be the first of many steak videos that I'll hopefully be making on this channel because I love steak. There are different types of steak that I like to cook, and there are different ways that I like to experiment. This is just the beginning. If I can afford steak, I could totally eat steak every day. You know, of course, I would die probably within 2 months of doing that. But I love steak is all I'm trying to say. And now I'm gonna finish this bottle, this 1.5 liter bottle that still has a good amount of wine in it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Steak and salad, pretty easy in my opinion. Have fun, you know, make it, whatever. To the 9 subscribers that I have, I'm out.